Joining us on the phone line to help us talk it through is Amit Tandon, MD of IiAS, a long-time veteran of the rating industry as well. Amit, thanks for joining us. We have a lot of sort of explanatory questions for you more than anything else. My first question is on this new formula that they are talking about for the computation of a cumulative default rate. Is it substantially different from what is followed right now?
Not. There are some. The idea is to bring some degree of consistency between the rating agencies. Most of them are kind of following it, but there are some differences. So, for instance, I look at it in three ways. The first is the fact that this time they're kind of saying that give us a combined default statistics for structured obligations as well as what your regular loans are. The rating agencies so far have kind of disclosed these separately. SEBI is saying, look, a AAA needs to mean the same thing, whether you're lending money to a bank, whether you're lending money to a mortgage-backed security, or whether you're lending money to an auto manufacturer. So the AAA needs to be a AAA, and therefore we want the statistics to kind of combine everything. The second difference is that, different agencies have kind of got these little bit of quirks in as much as one agency might say that, look, if it's a corporate loan, even if it's an SO, it would be in the corporate default statistics, but if it is a structured obligation, it would be structured. Another agency might say anyone which has the suffix SO will be in the structured default statistics, and it comes there. The third big change is, how do you kind of get the numbers, and by that two things. One is withdrawal of ratings. They've said, look, if it's a withdrawal, you can exclude it, but over the last few years they've kind of tightened the definition of when you can have a withdrawal. The second aspect here is they've kind of said that, look, at the end of the day, to kind of get the denominator right, you can use only 3 ratings. So if you've kind of rated a bank, for instance, you could have the advanced tier 1 and the base rating. You can't say that, look, I've got 7 instruments and therefore my base rate goes up by 7 and therefore I get better numbers out there. So in a sense, they've kind of ensured that all the rating agencies do have a consistent methodology going forward.
This monthly static pool, Amit, again, I think CRISIL said that they used to do it in any case, which is that, if some rating is expired, it still gets counted within that pool. Is that what it means?
Yeah. So what has happened is that, look, my sense is that at least those with global affiliations, CRISIL, ICRA and India ratings would be following a methodology which is consistent with what happens globally and which is what all firms do. I don't have the details for how the domestic firms are doing it, but it's kind of, again, as you said, it's a practice which is already being followed.
Okay. What do you make of this introduction of the probability of default benchmarks for credit rating agencies? Firstly, to your understanding, what is it intended to do?
That's an interesting thing because my views all along has been that, look, when you get that probability of default, it's an ex ante calculation rather than ex post. So you can't say that, look, company A, there's a 2% probability of default and therefore it's going to be a AA rating. What you have to do is get the numbers and then kind of say that, look, our statistics, if it's a AA, this is the probability of default. But now what SEBI is trying to do is make the rating agencies a lot more accountable. And, one of the constant grouses against the rating agencies has been that they're far too backward looking. But what they're trying to do here is to say that, look, if you're a AAA, from the time of assigning the rating or reaffirming the rating, for the next 3 years, it cannot move to a default category. If it's a AA, I think they've got a timeline of 1 to 2 years. I need to go back on that. And if it's a single A rating, it cannot default in the next 6 months.
1 year. 1 year.
1 year. So it's a kind of attempting to put greater accountability on the rating agencies, put greater pressure on them because they will realize that, if they've kind of just done something for, gone along with management, taken an aggressive call on a particular rating, then there are consequences if the rating does not kind of behave the way it's expected to.
Okay, so just to understand that right, so they would calculate a probability of default based on, I assume, some formulas that would exist or SEBI may prescribe, and they could only rate a security AAA if there is a zero sort of default rate for 1 and 2 years, or probability of default rate for 1 and 2 years. For 3 years, again, zero with a tolerance level of 1%. So that means, that benchmark becomes inherent in rating somebody AAA is, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused about what that means.
Sure. Look, the way it means is that, let's say everyone assumes that, look, there's a 2% default, that 2% probability that that a AA is going to default. But what happens is that, typically you don't expect a AA to default in 1 year. You might expect it to happen over 2 to 3 years as it moves down. So if there's a AA rating, it kind of, over 1 year, it kind of stays AA, then it kind of moves to, for the sake of the discussion, BBB. And then it kind of moves to default, or the changes over 3 years. So that AA kind of moves to a default, and it's kind of captured in your 3-year default statistics. It's not likely to happen in that 1 year period. Now what they're saying is that, look, we expect that system-wide, and those numbers will come out over a period of time, that AA default over 3 years is supposed to be 2%. Now, if a rating agency comes back and says that, look, our default is 4%, then SEBI is going to be asking them, look, why is it 4%? Now, if it's a systemic issue that, look, everyone's kind of seen an uptick, then SEBI might be a little bit more forgiving. But if it's only for one rating agency, they're going to take the hammer to them and ask them to kind of tighten their evaluation and their credit matrices.
Okay. Would it also mean that a smaller subset of companies would qualify for a AAA or AA once these, probability of default ratings are calculated or metrics are calculated?
I would expect that, look, so far the rating agencies have been able to get away by saying that, look, 90% of it is the past, 10% is in the future. What this is doing is it's kind of pushing them to take a hard look. There are certain assumptions you make that, look, some business will be sold and therefore I will get money. And therefore, I'm kind of hinging my rating on that. They'll have to kind of take a very hard call on something like that and say that, look, we are not going to give you the benefit of doubt in this instance, and therefore the rating might move down.
Okay.
Or should move down. So, yes, you're right. There will be a tighter, the universe of AAA and AA companies will tighten.
Okay. The other things that have been announced, Amit, so one is that, sort of credit enhancement suffix, that sounds, cosmetic to some extent. Disclosure.
It has implications, Ira. It is, for a long time, the ratings are based on some degree of support. So let's look at Air India. Because of the guarantee, it may be AAA SO, but what SEBI you to do is give a standalone rating, which could be a single B, meaning, or even a lower category C, that it's likely to default, and some of the instruments are defaulting. It's actually also very useful in terms of the parent-subsidiary relationship, because often you kind of say that, look, the guarantee is there. What SEBI is saying is that, look, they want you to mention, do it given credit enhancement only if there's an explicit guarantee. And if there is an explicit guarantee, then you kind of give the guarantee, the rating of the parent plus the standalone rating of this entity. So I think there's going to be far more granular information about the various credits. So while I don't treat that as a cosmetic change at this moment, I think it's significant. And my sense, again, what I understand since these conversations have been going on for a while, is that, while they've kind of, they're going to broaden what all comes under credit enhancement over a period of time. They're kind of testing the waters with this change.
So hypothetically, this parental support, which is built into pretty much every, company,
Sure.
That gets covered? Not yet.
It does get, in a sense, it does get covered because what they've asked is for an explicit guarantee.
Okay, understood.
So my sense is it does get captured now. Someone might turn around and say it's explicit because it shares the parent's name. They have, both of the entities have the same name. They have, four of the board members from the parent company or the subsidiary. So that's an assumption which someone will have to make. But I think it's going to be more and more difficult with the passage of time.
Okay. The liquidity indicators part, Amit, last question. Again, there they've sort of standardized how you disclose it. Yeah. That should help too, particularly in financial businesses?
Absolutely. So therefore, they kind of asked rating agencies to start giving commentary on disclosures. Now they've kind of got definitions. I think it's also implicit in this is that, look, if you're a AAA, you can't be in an environment where your liquidity, access to liquidity is low. So by virtue of the fact that you're combining liquidity with the rating, it means that, look, if your liquidity is low, then you have to be a lowly rated entity. Of course, you could be a low-rated entity with a high liquidity. That's possible. But the other way is not, which is sometimes what happens with a lot of the debt instruments is that they're highly rated, but when someone goes to sell them, they have a huge impact cost. And there's a 15, 20, 25% destruction of the NAV which is taking place at the time of the sale. So this is to address that issue and get rating agencies to be a lot more thoughtful in terms of the liquidity and availability of liquidity in the market.